Okay, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to this masterclass with Vani Kola. Very excited to introduce her to you during this session. So let me take a few minutes to introduce our guest, Vani, to all of you. Vani, of course, is the managing director at Kalari Capital. It's an early stage venture capital firm based in Bangalore. She's a renowned investor and a visionary known for identifying emerging markets. Her leadership at Kalari centers around her commitment to the development of entrepreneurs and her conviction that Indian companies are poised to become global players. Vani is a technology-focused investor, with many of her investments having now become very successful, validating her aptitude for picking the best young minds and mentoring them to build high-growth enterprises. She currently serves on the board of several companies, such as Dream11, CureFit, and Vogo. Vani's profile in numerous books and has been identified as Fortune's most powerful women in business. She's actively involved in various organizations focused on fostering entrepreneurship and women leadership. Outside of work, Vani enjoys spending time with her family, practices yoga and heartfulness meditation devotedly. She believes in sustainable living and grows enough organic produce in her garden to meet her family's needs. Vani, welcome to this session. And of course, we have Shraddha here to host. Over to you, Shraddha and Vani.
Thank you. Now over to you, Vani.
Thank you. Thank you, Shraddha. I am really excited to be here. I think you're giving me an opportunity to sort of be the professor that I have always wanted to be. So let's get started. You know, I wanted to talk about explorers. I've always enjoyed reading, enjoyed biographies, and drawing lessons from history. So welcome, everyone. I think exploration is something we are born with. If you watch a baby, it grows through a process of curiosity and exploration. And a big part of entrepreneurship is this very same curiosity. Anyone can be an entrepreneur, really. All it takes is a willingness to follow your curiosity. So, you know, why are we drawn to exploration? Exploration, I think, comes naturally to all of us. We have inherited this from a millennia throughout history. I think it's an innate trait that we have, the desire to explore. I suppose from the prehistoric time and when we wandered out to what's next, we have explored as a race. And the spread of civilization as we understand it is led by this process of exploration. I think in the golden age of exploration, every young person probably went to sleep dreaming of undiscovered lands, untold wonders, and the prestige and financial gain of a successful expedition. If that sounds familiar, that's today's young generation of entrepreneurs. So nothing has really changed in all of these centuries. We are all exploring at all times and different things. So one question I'm often asked is, what makes an entrepreneur? And entrepreneurship is it for everyone? And I think entrepreneurship is closely tied fundamentally to this desire for exploration. It is kind of unexplainable. And I don't think that some people are better suited to be entrepreneurs and versus others. I think it comes from the core sense of curiosity. So the human desire for exploration has led to many, many discoveries. So if we look back, starting in 15th century, you know, when Fernando Magellan circumvented the whole globe onwards, I think the world as we understand it fundamentally changed. Humans have gone to the depths of oceans. We have explored the skies, starting off an entire aviation revolution. And of course, in the 1940s, we ventured into space, culminating in the 1969 Neil Armstrong landing on the moon, a small step for man and a huge step for humanity. So, and recently, and I hope all of you had a chance to watch the human space shuttle that was launched by SpaceX, fueled by Elon Musk's vision. So, discovery is really never over. There is always a new venture to pursue. I say this because sometimes it feels like, oh, every good company has already been founded. That's not true. Everything is always changing. Almost every exploration leads to new discoveries, and it fundamentally changes the way we live. So I hope you see, as I do, the parallelism to entrepreneurship. So any discoveries lead to paradigm shifts. Explorers were largely driven by a sense of adventure or scientific inquiry, but the most common outcome of exploration was trade. For example, our common Indian pepper, which we use daily, was once called the black gold because it was so expensive. So new discoveries make something more valuable and something less valuable. As the oceans were discovered and spice routes were established, we were able to navigate the oceans, beginning what we today call as globalization. And with that, the humble pepper, which was once as valuable as gold itself, is affordable very easily to everyone in the world. So every new discovery creates new opportunities and takes away an existing market. And this is important to remember as an entrepreneur, because we are caught into market shifts no more, no differently than explorers of past work. And our markets, can change. Every new tech innovation, while it creates a new opportunity, it makes something obsolete. So some of the key aspects of entrepreneurship is to understand the shifts in supply and demand. And when something new becomes unique and valuable, something else becomes abundant and hence becomes a commodity. So the market changes and the market shifts are merciless. For example, with the advent of digital cameras, entire industry of production of film and development of film became very rapidly obsolete. So what is the explorer's mindset? This is actually a term that is used in leadership training and even in classrooms to draw lessons from famous expeditions, because at the core of every expedition is actually a crisis, right? No expedition goes so smoothly. Just like no company becomes successful without undergoing certain kinds of crisis. And hence, the explorer mindset to a crisis is very relevant to draw also in the journey of entrepreneurship. So I thought it would be fun for us today to explore through the learnings and journeys of some famous explorers. So, I've always found myself learning from journeys of others, propelled by exploring the lives of others. Through their trials and tribulations and choices, they leave behind for us a rich library to draw from. So these real life situations can also give us many clues on how we may draw lessons in our own journey, especially in entrepreneurship. So let's look at a few explorers. You may be familiar with them. For example, Fernando Magellan. He was a famous Portuguese explorer, and he was the first one to circumvent the globe. And in that process, he proved that the earth is round. Until then, the predominant belief being that the earth was flat. And also that the earth was a lot bigger than what anybody imagined it to be. And it was the first time that we understood that all the continent oceans are actually connected. The same Atlantic Ocean touches multiple continents and the Pacific and so forth. Now, this was a huge achievement, something that maybe, doesn't deserve a second thought today, but this was huge information and huge achievement. And hence the crossing of the Strait of Magellan with very, very limited equipment and knowledge was a breakthrough in terms of navigational task. But one of the biggest setbacks was in the immediate aftermath. Few actually celebrated this accomplishment. He was widely discredited and even reviled. So what is important to take away is the magnificent discovery and how it would change world trade was hard to fathom for anyone. So when you start a company, this is the frequent question, when is a good time to start? There is really no good time to start a company. You start one when you feel compelled to start. And as Fernandez said, the sea is dangerous and its storms are terrible, but that has never been a sufficient reason to remain ashore. And the way I would offer that is, inevitably, when you start a company, undergoing some crisis is part of the passage, and you should start when you have a compelling cause to be able to start. And the other takeaway is sometimes the true impact of major discoveries remain remain limitedly understood for a while to come. Now, another favorite explorer of mine is actually Shackleton. And Shackleton was an Irish explorer. And in 1914, he led a crew of 27 people, men and several dogs, on an enigmatic expedition to Antarctica. But few months into the journey, his ship, the Endurance, was crippled and sank into ice. Now they had to seek shelter on an island, and they survived 17 months against improbable odds in this ice cave, if you will. And eventually, Shackleton crossed more than 1,000 kilometers personally in a tiny boat and came back with people to rescue each one of his men. So, though he failed in his original mission of reaching the South Pole, he is respected and revered and is actually legendary for his leadership skills in rescuing all of his men. When I look at his clarity of communication and capacity to keep faith against odds, and his acumen to inspire his men and keep them busy despite dire situation of everyday imminent death, and finally to emerge victorious with everyone intact, I feel that anything we face from entrepreneurship, we should be inspired by his lessons in communication and clarity. And I also like what he says, that it's our nature to explore and to reach out to unknown. Really the true failure is not to explore at all. Because if you have dreamt of building something, a product, or solving a problem, or starting a company, it would be really a self-sacrifice to not do so. I think each of us deserve to explore our true inner urges. Another, favorite of mine, Amelia Earhart. She was an aviation pioneer and actually a great author. She was the first female aviator to fly solo across the Atlantic Ocean. Most of us know, of course, that she died and she was never found. But she was inspired to take flying, and somehow saved $1,000 so she can enroll into a flight school. She faced a lot of challenges in life in general, because she pursued activities that were considered for men at that time. And if you can think about in 1921, somebody, which is almost a century ago, a woman flying. And I bring this up because I'm not sure in the audience how many women entrepreneurs we have. And of course, Shraddha is there as a great role model. There's always another question I'm asked to say, is it harder for women to be entrepreneurs? And maybe it is, maybe it isn't, but we need to draw inspiration from wherever we can. And I draw a lot of inspiration from Amelia Earhart. So, and another thing with her was she attributed, her success, a lot of her success, to preparation. She said, that's 2/3 of the success of any venture. So I think her capacity for meticulous planning, that's not any different when we start a company. Launching a product too quickly, we know, has a poor product too quickly has a very high cost. So is the execution of a ill thought out plan. And I like her attitude too, the notion that are you flying off a runway that already built for you? Or if you don't have a runway to take off, then you be responsible to building that runway. That also sounds very familiar. For example, when you start a company, sometimes you can build on an existing platform. Let's say your product idea can sit on a Facebook or a Google or an Amazon or a SaaS product on Microsoft or Salesforce. So that's kind of the runway. They offer a runway on which you can build and take off. But if your idea is so original that you need to build, let's say, the internet highway, then you need to pace yourself differently, like Netscape did when they had to build the very first browser. So you have to be aware that if you are building the new internet highway, in order for you to build on top of it, these missionary projects take a lot longer to evangelize and take off. LinkedIn was started in 2002, but for the first decade, actually, until the network effects were clear, they were not able to truly deliver the kind of scale, scope that they have now. Again, success is not always happy ending. In Kalpana Chawla, who was the first Indian woman to fly in space, she of course lost her life in the Challenger. But again, going back to why do we start companies, the familiar theme you see is you do something because you really want to do it. The end outcome may not be really clear. And hence, when we think of starting a company because we are going to get rich, or, I'm going to take this company public for $1 billion, there is nothing wrong in dreaming, but that end outcome is not something that is clear or apparent. So when there is no guarantee of success, the reason to start a company has to really be because of the passion to do something that you are compelled and called upon, and you must pursue it and explore, and you're willing to take all the risks that it entails. And that sort of, I think, is a good takeaway from when we think about entrepreneurship. And how can we not talk about entrepreneurship without talking about, Elon Musk, right? So, when your vision is important and something that's beyond the imagination of most people, you will be told by most that it's impossible. But really, what is possible and what is impossible is what starts in your head, in your mind. So when something is important enough, you have to do it, even if the odds are not in your favor. And mostly in entrepreneurship, the odds are not in your favor. So, imagine saying a private space company will launch humans into orbit. Of course, people are going to say that's impossible. So don't let naysayers dissuade you if you truly believe in it. I think that's the most important thing that we take away here. So, I think in embracing the framework of an explorer's mindset, you have to question your assumptions at all times. Both explorers and entrepreneurs have to operate with a lot of unknowns. New discoveries and innovations can bring paradigm shift. So, new weather, meaning new markets, the pandemic that has just happened, there will always be shifts that is given. So be open to change. And the trap we can fall into is that our original vision is pure and is the only way forward. I think it's important that for lasting changes, it has to start from within. So creating a culture in an organization where you invite people to share data all the time, and especially if it contradicts current beliefs or focus, this has to be something that you do structurally. And without that, navigating through rough waters, or even what may appear to be still waters, will be difficult, because it only takes one storm to turn the still waters into truly choppy waves. So continuing to invite a culture of contradiction is important. And we had talked about how not to be locked into one vision and one opinion. Once you have the data that shows you that something, a product or a market or a price point, is not working as expected, then course correct quickly, as soon as possible. It is in our nature, in fact, to delay or postpone the uncomfortable things. And this is the very urge we have to learn how to resist and how to manage. So don't drift with the flow, actively control the flow instead. So while vision is very important, it's very easy to get lost in a great vision, but it's also important for entrepreneurs to be in the trenches on a daily basis. If you think of the vision from a metaphor as the North Star in the sky, that's just kind of giving you a guidance, but the focus on task is to ensure that you're moving in the right direction. So while you keep in focus your North Star of what you want to achieve, it's important that you make daily decisions which have to do with strong execution. And it's also important that you understand the core purpose of why you are doing something. And when there are setbacks, it becomes this why are you working on this idea? Why this project? And you will be able to better decide how to keep yourself, your employees focused when you understand the importance, and you will be able to filter out what is simply noise. And lastly, nothing is achieved alone. And this is something, again, time and again, for founders, very important to realize. However brilliant the founder may be, however brilliant Elon Musk may be, there have to be two humans who had to get into that spacecraft, not knowing if they will live or die, and be willing to go off to execute this vision of exploring space, if you will. So there are different ways in which companies collaborate, but you have to set your leadership on how you create collaboration within the team, and figure out what is the style that works best for you and your organization. But to creating those rituals, creating those structures through which you bind teams together, and your way of working is very, very clear, is, I think, one of the most important things to have a team behind you that executes to the vision. So now, if we think about a leader's playbook for crisis management, first, assess the magnitude of risks and take stock. Now, the risk doesn't mean that you shouldn't attempt it, but you should understand what are your odds, and accordingly, you do a pragmatic SWOT analysis, pragmatic being the underline here. Very few times we understand the upside, we understand our strengths, but we are unwilling to carefully look at what are our weaknesses and what are our risks. And, understanding weaknesses and risks can only help you better strengthen the outcomes. And in that process, identifying your key uncertainties. There are always uncertainties. There is nothing certain about building any business. And in those uncertainties, identifying contingencies and continuity is very important. Oftentimes, when I ask, so what would you do under this and this risk? There are no answers. And a team almost feels, or a founder almost feels that, if I do contingency planning, then it's kind of like accepting that there is a possibility of a failure. I at least come from a school of thought that best of companies will create strong contingency and continuity plans, and hopefully 90% of the time they don't need to use them, but the 10% of the time they have to use them. This becomes the reason to why they pull ahead and others don't. So the other thing is, whenever there is a crisis, we have to engage and we have to ensure alignment with all the stakeholders on the way ahead. And again, it goes back to this trait of not wanting to discuss bad news or not wanting to discuss difficulties. We think that all stakeholders only want to hear good news. Of course, they want to hear good news, but if something is not going right, trust me, they already know it in one form or the other. So the capacity to have authenticity, to lay it out to all the stakeholders and carry them with you becomes a very important leadership trait, as well as then creating clear ownership and empowerment and freedom. So ownership, empowerment, and freedom becomes very important. And this is actually one of the most difficult transitions I feel for founders to make, to empower others to work on their vision. I also feel, as you think about alignment, always prioritize your customers first. One of the things I ask companies is, are you able to fulfill your customers' orders? Whenever there is a crisis, your first order priority is to deliver on your commitment to your customers. And so there are certain fiscal disciplines that are very important to not cross, to make sure you're always servicing your customers first, then employees, then community. Community includes your suppliers, distributors. Obviously, I put investors in the end, because if your customers and employees are not taken care of, your capacity to take care of your investors will be minimal. If you have taken care of all the others, then you're likely to be able to take care of your investors also. And like I said, communicate, don't bury bad news, don't stonewall, don't hide facts. That completely undermines your credibility and trust. And once that's gone, it's really impossible to get it back. And, stay cool. How much ever you have butterflies, it's your responsibility to be the symbol to inspire confidence and faith. That doesn't mean, again, you don't communicate or you bury the bad news. It just means that you say, yeah, this is the situation, but I am confident we can do X, Y, Z. And, for that, being flexible is very important. And most importantly, lastly, lead always with integrity. And speed of response, speed of action is one of the tenets in terms of authenticity in leadership. Make the decisions, don't drift, don't push them away because it's unpalatable. Deal with the unpalatable today and don't push the unpalatable to tomorrow. So, in closing, learn to look at the silver linings and make an opportunity out of every crisis and situation that you face. In adapting the explorer mindset, as I said, the challenge of a stormy sea can also be the best adventure in terms of taking you to yet another level. And, even in any crisis, there are always new things through which you can find answers and through which you can succeed. So, I in closing, just wanted to say that a journey of a leader is one of continuous learning. And the continuous learning, honestly, can come from learning through many other journeys, even if it was many centuries ago. I think people and leadership is a continuum, and continuing to learn and embrace from how others have handled crisis well, I have found always inspiring for me personally when I have to face my own challenges.
That, like, so I'll ask you a few questions, and then maybe we can take, there are some questions coming from the audience, we can take that. So one question I had for you, Vani, is that it's very beautiful and powerful that you say about the explorer's mindset. What it means also to me when you say explorer's mindset is that it's a mind constantly in motion, not static. It's moving, it's finding, and it's continuously trying to improve and figure out things. But I had a question, Vani, and it comes from also a personal space, is that while you have explorer's mindset, while you are chasing, while you are figuring things out, you are also in a constant state of restlessness, right? Because an explorer is constantly somewhere. Being an explorer is also constantly not being in a status quo or in a happy state, because you want to figure out more, do more, answer more, get more. So how do you balance that? How do you keep on exploring, keep on figuring out, keep on chasing more, but at the same time be at peace?
I think best of, let's call entrepreneurs explorers as entrepreneurs. I think they understand the value of preparation, right? Your ship has to be ready. You have to stop at times to rebuild and repair your ship, okay? And that's kind of, think about it as when it's time to re-architect your product, you have to re-architect your product, okay? If your product is not ready for scaling, then you have to take the time to fix it, right? If you take, otherwise it's suicidal. If you take a leaky ship into the ocean, then you're risking yourself and risking everyone. So the restlessness has to be challenged through structured activity and structured planning. Planning is key, a big part of success of any mission, okay? You can't simply take off in space. Look at the meticulous planning and contingency planning that would happen. And companies are not that different. And when we sort of shoot from the hip, today this product, tomorrow that product, today this customer, tomorrow that customer, there is no channeled thinking, you know. So we know that you can run zigzag and you're expending energy, but you're not, you may be covering the distance, but you're not reaching the destination, right? So channeling restlessness into systematic, structured planning, I think, is very important.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, that's a very, very powerful, input. The other question I had is on failures. And failure is also not in isolation. I might think I'm not a failure, but the world around me thinks. And I'm asking you this question, Vani, also particularly because there's so many layoffs happening, there's so many furloughs taking place, and there is this sense of gloom overall, and especially among young people, because the world is uncertain, but their lives and careers as of this moment is becoming more uncertain. What would you say to people and to youngsters and everyone and entrepreneurs at this time? From what lens should they be looking at failure?
No one is a failure. You are not a failure. When I say you, whoever the you out there is, if you're feeling you're a failure, you are not. That's the first thing, okay? Some company laying off because they didn't plan well, or they faced uncertain circumstances, is not a reflection on you, right? And I think it's very important, like I said, what is possible, what's impossible, what is success, what's failure, has to come from deep within. And I'm digressing here, Shraddha, but I was devastated 2 days back when we all saw that Sushant Singh, suicide, not because we know him personally, but you say, wow, he seems to have it all. But then why, right? So this is very easy inside to feel like you are worthless and you're a failure. It cannot come from anyone outside of you. Who you are has to be very deeply, deeply rooted into you, right? Then it's kind of like, a mountain doesn't twist because no matter how much the wind is, So find that inner core, and okay, you got laid off, but there is something else that's going to open up. Maybe that is a chance for you to go back and to study something you wanted to study, or maybe it's a chance for you to freelance. I know it is hard because you first start with a fear and dejection, but it's really important to surround yourself with people who are positive, who give you that energy and support. And it's okay. I mean, this is not the first time or the last time the world has seen layoffs, and sometimes it's difficult, I know, but it's the time for you to do deep introspection and figure out what to do next. Maybe become an entrepreneur, maybe pursue that idea that you had never considered. Don't worry about this artificial safety net of some company, some job. Find go study something else, start something, look for a new job. Life will be okay, and take every day from positivity, please.
When you say this, no, it just feels reassuring. Tell me, and I always tell you, and I'm saying this in front of the camera and here while we are talking, I find you a person who's very deeply anchored. You have a very strong inner core, and I really respect, like, and admire that. Tell me, Vani, how can we all develop a very strong, because I feel some people have it, some people don't. And some people get affected by external stimuli more than some people. And leadership trait is to get less and less affected. While you have high EQ, you have to get less affected by the negativity around you. How do you develop that framework within yourself?
I think you build tools for self-reflection. And for me, that's meditation and yoga, but it could be whatever your tools are that allows you to self-reflect and, find that sense of power in you. All of us have done something good in our life, okay? And we have to draw from that, and we have to go back to that feeling of goodness and, anchor that into ourselves and say, yeah, I had that problem at that time. I overcame that, whatever that was. And so I just have to do it again. And, and also, not worrying too much about what others say, and that includes then having at least some people you surround yourself with that are genuine, that are real, that can truly watch your back and care for you, and you need to form that, and you have to invest into that. It doesn't happen overnight, but it is also something you need to invest, because, as they say, all that glitters is not gold, right? So, everything around the world is number of likes on social media, whatever, so be rooted into realism. And I think that's important. I think you can overcome anything if you believe in yourself and you have a few people around you that believe in you.
Yeah. I wanted to understand, how did you come up with this explorer's mindset framework? And also, who are some of the explorers you admire? And if you had to rate yourself from 1 to 10 as an explorer, where will you rate? So I have 3 questions.
As you know, Shraddha, I like to read a lot, right? I remember way back, I don't know how old I was, maybe 18 or 16 or something like that. First time I read about Shackleton. In fact, my father had given me a book on explorers, different explorers, and what their life was like. And I was just impossible to imagine what Shackleton had achieved. And there is a movie, in fact, called Endurance. And in many of my companies, I would ask my leadership team to watch it again and again with me, because it shows how the odds were so impossible. But he had this deep faith and conviction, and he made his people believe we will all get out of this alive. And he did. And it's, horrendous what he achieved. The odds were so small. So I remember way back reading, and in this movie Endurance, I would and like that, there are so many others. I've had my teams watch Endurance. I've had my teams watch Apollo 13, which again is an impossible mission. How to, bring these people on a damaged spacecraft back to Earth, but it was achieved. The impossible was achieved, right? So I think they give us inspiration. I didn't invent the explorer's mindset; that actually exists as a framework of leadership, right? So I've always been inspired to learn, Shraddha. So that's how I came up with this. But what was your third question? I didn't answer that.
Second question was, so I have two more. Who are some of the explorers you have admired personally in the Indian context, and you work with so many people, and then the third is, if you had to rate yourself, your explorer's mindset quotient 1 out of 10, where will you rate yourself?
I mean, I won't rate myself, but I will tell you that, I follow my convictions, right? Now, sometimes that is not popular and that may not be also fashionable or acceptable. Sometimes it may be, right? But rarely am I bothered from how my convictions might get perceived by others, right? So in that sense, I think that's something, if you are going to be a leader, if you are going to be an entrepreneur, if you're going to be an explorer, your own inner calling and staying true to that is the most important thing. And on that score, not on score of success or anything else, on that score, because that's a core trait all entrepreneurs, all leaders need to have. Follow your conviction, right? Whether that makes you popular, unpopular, that makes you loved or unloved, you have no choice, because that's your clarion call. That's sort of the bugle that you need to follow, because that's coming from within you. And that's what I would say, Shraddha. And
Vani, I will rate you 10 on 10, because that you do. Popular or not popular, the coming out of conviction, I think that you always stand for. Yeah. But who are some of the explorers you admire in the Indian context?
Well, I mean, there are so many. Recently, we have to look at Jio and say, gosh, how not to admire those guys, right? Again, if you talk about preparation, having a big vision, but being able to execute, right? And everything we've talked about so far. Now, you may like their pricing, may not like their pricing, you may like their monopoly, you may not like their monopoly, but nonetheless, having a big vision, having a core conviction, and being able to kind of stay with it and execute with detail relentlessly, how can you not admire that, right?
Yeah.
So that's one example I'd give you.
Yeah. The other question I wanted to understand, and this is, especially during this context of COVID times that we are all dealing with. I really, again, if you could tell us, how do we navigate this in terms of, because there's so much of uncertainty. Like you said, make plans, have a plan. But today, any plan you make is very difficult, right? Because everything is shifting so much, the world around you. How do you navigate this on an everyday basis?
One day at a time. You deal with what you can today. You make certain assumptions. Okay, you start with, this is going to be there for 4 quarters with us. Some of my customers will come back, some of my customers won't come back. Here are some hard decisions I need to make in order to survive the next 12 months, and I might as well make them today than wait to make them tomorrow. So it is contingency planning, Shraddha. And for each business, you have to pragmatically assess your risks, right? If you thought this was going away in 2 months, we are wrong. Is there any new opportunities I can chase if the old opportunity is not valid? Or, do I have tailwinds somewhere that I need to maybe, expand faster? So, but, you have to assess your risks and create contingency planning and an action plan to set forward. Every day, create that action, as they say, anything that is stationary gathers moss, so you get stale if you don't move. So I think create action, create movement, something will work.
Yeah. Vani, I just read something which I wanted to share, the better you model. So it says the thrill is in the chase, that happiness is in motion, and that fulfillment is in this constant striving for that which is just beyond the reach. So it's not in getting the goal. What you're saying is that, just the chase, what you are saying right now, right? Like that every day. That's what you're saying. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. How do we know that we are explorers? How do you know that? How do we assess that we have explorers mindset?
I mean, you already are. From the day you were born, you explored your world, you figured out so many things, you are, it is in you. Now, you might camouflage it, you might have lost touch with it, but you are. And it's really a mindset. And so that's a switch. Mindset is always a switch that you control. So I think the 700 people that are here, every one of us are explorers. Now, what do we choose to explore? Different people, we don't all have to be the same. We don't all have to chase the same rainbow. And everyone has a certain inner calling that they're passionate about. And that's what you need to follow, right? So that it's not the question of whether you're an explorer or not, whether you're in touch with knowing what is that calling that you feel so passionate about.
Yeah. And one very important question which has come up is, how do you build a culture of can-do, risk-taking in your team, given that many may not be exposed to such concepts?
Sometimes risk taking is easier when there is a safety net. So if you sort of see a circus, they are doing these crazy jumps, but there is also a net, because if you fall, though it's not great to fall in front of audience, it's not that you are going to break your neck and be paralyzed, right? So, risks also can't be completely unquantified risks that you take. Okay, risk has to have some kind of a quantification. So you may find that if your teams are not criticized for failing, or are only rewarded for just the effort of taking the risk, right? You will build that culture. We are all react to incentives. So the way you build a risk-taking culture is to highlight the risks people took, and don't worry about the outcomes, right? First is to they have the capacity to take risk. That's why it's called a risk. If it was a guarantee of success, then it wouldn't be called a risk. So do you encourage people to take risks? That is the, and how do you structurally create that? Can someone come up with an idea and say, I need a small budget, I need to spend 2 weeks working on this? And you say, absolutely, So build that culture by making it possible for people to take risks with a safety net. If the safety net is not there, then most people will not take the risk. If you say you took the risk, but you know what, if you fail, you're going to be ridiculed, or you will never again get another chance, or worse yet, you're going to be fired. That's why we talk about, why you get frustrated when you face bureaucracy. Why is that? Because the bureaucracy is not incented to take risk at all. If anything, they are, disincented to take risk, and hence they don't, right? So if you want a risk-taking culture, then encourage risk.
Yeah, one question, Vani, I have, and this is for everyone who's watching this and who will be watching the video, is, if you had to say, because you have a knack for spotting some very early trends and very interesting entrepreneurs. And if I may say so, at that time when you invest, it doesn't look like those are like the standard pattern investing, but you've done that very successfully. I want to understand, what is it that gets you excited about an entrepreneur?
It's the person, Shraddha. First it's the founder's mindset, how rigid they are, how capable they are of having difficult conversations, what is their clarity of vision and sense of purpose, what's their sense of integrity to others, right? Not just to themselves. Can they carry others along with them? And do they have the what should I say, the grit, to truly face challenges? We may not know what challenges each of us have to face, but undoubtedly you will have to face different challenges. So the grit to face those challenges. So all of that is the package of the person, Shraddha, because markets will kind of shift. And so that doesn't mean, if someone doesn't have a clarity of an idea of a market and a product, you can invest in the person just because of the other traits, because it takes a lot longer to figure all that out. So there has to be a strong sense of purpose of what they're doing, but how long can they stay with it? How do they take self-responsibility for it? Sometimes I hear, oh, my company would have been successful if only investors gave me money. But it's not like that. It is successful because of things that you have created. So to me, the quality and characteristics of the founder matters a lot.
Yeah. Do you think you have the ability to see below the I think you have, and that's why I'm going to ask, how do you develop the trait of the ability to see beyond the shine and the surface?
Sometimes you can't, because people are also evolving. No one is static. A 26-year-old entrepreneur is not the same 10 years later when they are 36, right?
Yeah.
So you also have to see what is the potential of the person. You're investing in the future. You're not investing in the current. You're not investing in a person who has already, run $1 billion company. You're assessing, do they have the capability to grow, to be able to do that, right? So, and that's judgment. And judgment is never 100% accurate, and you keep learning. I mean, every day I am learning, and my learning is not over.
Yeah. Vani, there are so many questions. I will send all this to Harshit because there are questions, and to everyone watching this question on how much to pay to legal guys and all that. But I think they're very specific questions which we will be sending it to you. Last two questions. As an entrepreneur, it's so hard because we are so attached and in love with our idea, what we are doing. There is a sense of self-worth also that comes, and there is so much, it's like love to what we are doing. But how do we know is the time to quit and time to stay, time to explore and time to explore something else? How do you make that decision?
I think it helps again to be pragmatic and to also have right people around you. There is a time to quit for everything, okay? And if you look at one, do you feel fulfilled? Of course, if you feel fulfilled, again, it doesn't matter what somebody else says. So why you could have done something bigger? Why did you end with something smaller? Whatever. How do you feel? Are you fulfilled? That's one measure. You're not answerable to anybody else. You're answerable to yourself. So that's, I did this journey. I, walked 100 miles. Maybe somebody else can walk 1,000 miles, but I'm happy with my 100 miles, right? So, so that's one part. So are you fulfilled? Then it's time to do something else. Second is, the odds, right, of assessing, I'm here, there is a straight stone wall and I can't climb it, right? Maybe somebody else can climb the straight stone wall, but can you climb it? Be very, very, very pragmatic about that. I'm not saying lose faith. There's a balance in realism and optimism, and you have to find what is that balance for you, right? But there is an inner voice. Sometimes you are externally projecting optimism when you don't feel it inside. What is most important is what are you feeling inside, and being in touch with that is important. So if it is a stone wall, then, accept that and say, not this time, right? Now we have to, just be done with this here, right? And if you have a good sounding board, I think you will be able to talk through it. A sounding board cannot give you the answer. What they can do is let you bounce off of them so you can find the true answer, right? So the time to quit is when either you can't see a way forward or, you are fulfilled.
Yeah. Thank you, Vani. This is like really, like for me, this is a master class, and it's always so encouraging. It makes you think listening to you. Last, I want to ask you, and this now I'm asking publicly, what is it that, what is it in your journey that you have valued the most? Like, in the sense, like, it could be something that you have done which you think has been most valuable, because you are continuously doing something. I always see you on the go, doing different things. But what is it that, if you have to say that, oh, this is what has been one of the most valuable things that I have done?
Fortunately, when I've made a commitment to someone, I have been able to stay true to that, right? And that gives you enormous sense of your own self-worth that you can draw from that to say, hey, good things happen, bad things happen, but I haven't gone back on what I committed to someone, right? And so my investors have always made money with me, whether I was an entrepreneur or, and hence by definition, then, everyone that sort of believed in you, right? So I think for me, that's important to, there are many temptations, many momentary reasons where you kind of could go slightly the other way. It seems like a slightly other way. But fortunately, there has always been a compass where I think I have stayed true to my commitments. And that's one. And then lastly, always I have found that when you are at your lowest, and all of us go through highs and lows, to tell otherwise is, misleading to yourself. So everyone goes through highs and lows, doesn't matter whether you are super successful from external perception or not. So, and in the low, I've always found true believers, and that's a gift, and obviously when you're doing well, that's fine. But when you're not, someone who says, I'll stick with you because I believe in what you're doing, that is a true gift. And I think it's, gives me enormous, how should I say, confidence in, humanity, I wanted to say, but really that, you are truly never alone. If you look, there will be somebody who believes in what you're doing.
Wow. Yeah. I think what you're saying is a gift is a double-way process. Like you get that gift because you would have given honesty, and that, you're saying that living up to people's trust. And I think that's why it's, yeah. Anyways, for everyone, all of us, thank you so much. And I'm going to say the last thing that you said, the quote that you had, the closing thought, there are always new things to find if you go looking for them. And I think in this conversation, we will be out with the video. There are a lot of things to be found, and I hope all of us find our own meanings from this explorer's mindset. Vani, thank you for so generously sharing with all of us all this thought, because this is very powerful and motivating, and we all need to hear from you. It's encouraging. Thank you.
Thank you. Good luck, everyone, and stay strong and stay safe.
Thank you so much, Vani. Thanks a lot.
All right. Bye.
Bye.